there's been a shift in the WeatherTech Championship, the IMSA Championship, and John Doonan, the head of Mazda, is now the lead guy. So I like to take a look back and look at the program he's ran over the years, mainly the Mazda programs, because they've had programs in both the Rolex Sports Car Series and the ALMS, American LeMans Series. And my first, I used to watch both series, and the Mazdas, they used to have the Mazda RX-8 in the Rolex Sports Car Series, so they were entertaining. They had the Speed Source team, the manufacturer team, Sylvain Tremblay, Nick Ham, and they also had other team, the Racer's Edge, who was running a big program. They had a squad of RX-8s. So there was a lot of teams running the RX-8s in those years in the Rolex Sports Car Series. But meanwhile, in the ALMS, they had BK Motorsports that was running a Lola Mazda, and Ben Devlin and another driver. Yeah, so Ben Devlin was the lead driver and he was driving a Lola Mazda. But that Mazda was. But the only thing is that happens that that was during the golden age of the LMS. So sort of like the time of the highest development, especially in P2. So the Lola Mazda was in P2, but the P2 at the time was in its golden age. We might never see a P2 category as developed as that time in the LMS between 2007, 2008, and 2009. So even the borderline, even 2005, the tail end of 2005, because that's when the Penske Spiders, RS Spiders, came aboard. I think they ran the last two races of the year in 2005, and they started on. So because that happened, the golden age of P2 came about. It made the Lola Mazda look like they were just there just to make up the numbers, literally. Because when the RS Spiders came aboard, then Acura came aboard, and they came with big resources. I mean, big time resources like full factory backing. They backed privateer teams and gave them full factory backing. So it made Mazda's effort look like nothing, even though that was a top program that Mazda had at the time. But it made the effort look like it was just they were just making up the numbers. Maybe it was similar. Maybe the Lola Mazda program had as big of a budget as the RX-8 program in the Rolex Sports Car Series. But in the Rolex Sports Car Series, they had, I don't know, maybe more than 5-6 cars overall, because they had many teams and drivers, and they had the young driver, exciting young drivers. So some, especially so Sylvain Tremblay and Nick Ham were in the main team, and they had Rafa Matos for the endurance races. And they did win and they Daytona 24 hours. But then the privateer teams that were backed by Mazda, and they had, so some of the privateer teams had Dan Cameron, Jonathan Palmerito, Jordan Taylor. So those guys are now those are now some of the big guns in the WeatherTech series now. And also Patrick Dempsey was in the Mazda, and obviously I mentioned Rafael Mados already. So so that was a very exciting program. It was a good time. I used to enjoy watching them. And they had a whole family there, I believe. The Nunamakers. The Nunamakers were they had the fleet of Mazdas that they were campaigning with Team Salins. So so they had with Team Salins was campaigning a couple Mazdas for Nunamakers. And so by the LMS, so it was good. They won a few races. They were competitive, but I felt they were spread a little bit too thin. So they were spread a little too thin because there was too many teams running the Masters. I felt if they had combined the program maybe into just two teams, two car teams just running the program, maybe they would have done better. They could have consolidated the results and got better results, more championship and more wins. Overall, they only had one championship. So even though they had all those drivers I mentioned, they were young at the time, so they might have not been at their peak. They're not at the peak that we see them now. So now they're at their peak, but they were young. But still, they were very fast still in those days. So going back to the LMS, so the LMS, they had the BK Motorsports running the Mazda, Lola Mazda, and that car was not competitive at all. So it's it was not competitive at all. If it doesn't get lapped in the race, that was an achievement for them. If it didn't get lapped by the P2 leader, it was an achievement for it. But it almost always got lapped. So that was if it didn't get lapped maybe twice, that was an achievement. So that's how the program went. I felt that maybe they could if they had, maybe they could have ended that program and just focus on the RX-8 program. But then but that's the business sense talking. By the same time, I guess they felt they had to keep both. They had to keep a foot in each place, just to see which series eventually would come out on top. But I gotta say, at the time, the ALMS, I would say, had the most fans. So the ALMS had the most fans, and it was just drawing so many people. It was just such a big draw, especially with the P2 programs. So maybe if they had, they could have, well, they would have to really pull out some resources to make it happen, and they didn't. So they just kept, the presence they had, and kept the presence they had in Grand Am. But in 2009, Penske left, and so Rob Dyson, the head of Dyson Motorsports at the time, I guess maybe they thought that once Penske left, that Porsche would run the program through them, but Porsche didn't. Porsche just ended the program, and and that was it. They just ended the factory program, and that was it. So Dyson decided, okay, so that's when the Mazda program was given to Dyson. So that was a rebirth, a shot in the arm for the Mazda program at the time. But the only thing is that you still had Acura in P2, so there was still an Acura in P2. That was the Los Fernandez Racing Acura, and that car was still pretty good. And even though there was two Mazdas against one Acura, the Acura still pretty much just cleaned up. It's still cleaned up. So but then the following year, in 2010, you had ESM Patron. So that was a privateer team. But still, they still cleaned up. They still beat the, they still cleaned up. And even then, the Mazda, which was a factory back program, was two places back. So you had ESM that won the championship, and then you had the Muscle Milk team, and then they still beat the Mazda with the RS Spider. So they had the ex Dyson Racing RS Spider, and still came out. They were second in the championship ahead of the Dyson Mazda. So that was 2010. So even though that was a factory program against two privateer programs, and they still didn't come out on top. They still didn't manage it, but so this was 2010. No Penske, no Andretti Green, no Highcraft Racing. So none of them, but still they still didn't manage to do it. And after that, again in 2011 was the good year. So that was pretty much the only championship so far that Mazda has claimed in prototypes. In the current era. So in the current era. So that still ranks at the only prototype championship that Mazda had, 2011. But that was more due to reliability, because still there was a Muscle Milk Pickett Racing had a Lola Aston, and they didn't win the retiring Sebring, but then they pretty much won most of the races during the season. So, but wins are more memorable and are more of an instant gratification for fans, especially when you are at the race, and your team wins, is more instant gratification. So for Mazda, a factory team, that was their time to really, they could have. I believe they just won the championship, so they did the math and figured, okay, as long as we stay second, we just keep consistent, we win the championship. But wins are where the tie. If you can win a championship and have wins, that's the perfect scenario. If you're not going to win the championship, at least have wins. So, but they had the win, but had the championship, but they didn't have the wins. So, that was a little okay. Well, not quite the ideal situation. Championship's good, but not quite the ideal situation. And then so they kept with the Dyson Lolas, but then the Dyson Lolas was still coming in second fiddle to Pickett Racing, to Muscle Milk Racing. Muscle Milk has some pretty good cars, So they had the R Spider, the Lola Aston, and then they had the Acura. So the Acura was always on top of the Dyson, and the Acura, that was a fully privateer funded program. So, and then the Dyson Lola was a full factory program. That was a factory world supported program, but I felt that they should have put more in it. They could have made that program. They could have made the ALMS their playground at that time. I felt they just didn't put enough resources into it to make it their playground. They could have canceled all the RX8 programs and fully committed to the Lola Mazda program and made it, and really won championships and really draw and to really draw fans in, because they had the race. They also, it was Mazda race with Laguna Seca, so they even had one track named after them. So they really should have made that and grafted with, probably with two horn and made the championship, the ALMS championship, theirs. So just like Cadillac is doing now. So they could have done that at the time. So that's what I feel. And then the merger happened. So, and then they had the Diesel Lolas. The first year they had two Diesel Lolas, and they had some exciting drivers, very good drivers, but the car just wasn't there. So but they ran them for 2014, the whole season 2014 with two cars. But from then on, it was clear it's not working. But the next year they came back again with the same car, with the same issues. It wasn't working either. So, but as a fan, you had to wonder what happened. Why? It didn't work last year. It didn't work this year. But then they still came out with the same program. Just like it was. They said, yeah, they worked on it. All that, but it didn't work. It didn't work out. And then 2016, they had, they changed to the regular engine, the 4-liter turbo engine. They were fast, but they just didn't have quite the strategy in place. I guess the team was not used to running prototypes, or just not used to running at that level. I don't know, maybe they could have called Dyson it, but I guess maybe they had a contract with Speed Source. That was the team running it, and I still like that name, Speed Source. That's a good sounding name. So, and then so 2016 didn't work out. 2017 they were very fast, but just the strategy just wasn't there. The strategy just didn't work out. So they had broke the season 2017, and they announced that Yoast will be coming out in 2018 with the program. And 2018 came, Yoast came, and they were faster, they were better, but no wins. But let's not forget, in 2014, 2015, during the merger, when the merger happened, you had privateer teams that had wins. So ESM had to win in 2014 with a gentleman driver, Ed Brown and Johannes Van Overbeek. They won Laguna Seca. In 2015, you had the other gentleman driver, John Pugh, with Oswaldo Negri, who won the race. So that was and at the same race, Mazda race with Laguna Seca. So it was coming in, not being able to win the race with the full factory program with two teams against private teams with gentlemen drivers is not. It just wasn't a good look. It just wasn't a good look at the time. So and then even they still have privateer teams winning. Even then, and even in 2016, then ESM won. The Rolex. That was a privateer team. They did have Honda backing, but it was still a privateer team. It was still a privateer team. And then also the other team won, and then the other team, Michael Shank Racing, won Petit Le Mans. So that year in 2016. So with Osvaldo Negri, so that was Osvaldo Negri, John Pugh, and Olivier Pla. So they won Petit Le Mans. So that's two privateer teams winning in that year. Yeah, well, factory backed, but they were privateer team. They were just backed by Honda. So, but compared to Speed Source, that was a factory team. That was Mazda's factory squad. So they had people in there from Mazda, and Mazda was paying everybody compared to just a private guy paying for the whole shebang. So so it wasn't really, everybody was wondering what's going on. I was wondering what's going on. Is this gonna make it? So well, but this year they finally came through. So the car came good. They finally came through. So it worked out. They had been very fast this year. So it worked out. But it's been a long road compared to, so pretty much the last time they had the race win was in the ALMS. And the only reason why when they won race in the ALMS was because there were pretty much only two teams in the P1, Muscle Milk Racing or Dyson. And when Muscle Milk had an issue, then Dyson would take the win. But most of the time it was Muscle Milk winning. So what does this tell us? Because the whole time John Doonan was the head of this program. Well, decisions haven't been made quickly enough to change course to maximize results. So when there's an issue happening, I felt that decisions were not made fast enough. But he might have been fighting by a bureaucratic system because he still has to answer to his Mazda bosses, and in interviews you hear him say that he had to go to Japan to speak with the Mazda higher ups. So he might have been tied down with the bureaucratic system and has to follow the chain of command to make stuff happen. So maybe he might have done the best with what he could do. So it's not what he could do. And also, but the good thing that probably made him why he got the position is that he has, he's had longevity. He has kept this program in two separate series, running them for over 10 years now. So running this program for over 10 years. So that's a lot of longevity. Only Corvette has had a longer time span. Only Corvette racing has had a longer time span. So that is a long time to be running a program and not get the funding cut. So he's been doing a good job with that. So for that, we can applaud. So we can applaud and say, okay, this guy has a passion. He wants to be. He has the resilience to be there. So he's gonna, whatever there's a problem, he's gonna stick through it and make it happen. And that's what we need for the series, for our beloved series. So that's why IMSA needs somebody who's going to be there and who knows the sport, who loves it, and he's going to be a fighter for it and stick through it. And he knows a lot about it. He knows a lot. So being there for so long, he knows a lot about the regulation, how things work, and how to get things done. And so he's definitely a good pick for the series. So I don't think anyone else has the same accolades. Well, there could be some people, but someone who has had this, he's a breadth of knowledge, knowing, how things run, because he's always in the pit, he's always in there. So you get interviews from him, and he seems like a likable guy. So so overall, yes, so he's definitely deserves it. So hopefully we can get stuff done. Hopefully it won't be as and quickly. When something make common sense decision. I like to see the series evolve. I would definitely like to see DPI race at Le Mans. So hopefully DPI can race at Le Mans. So that would be very good. So if anyone could get that down, that's John Doonan. So I want to see that. And okay. Thank you for watching. And if I miss anything, just let me know commenting, or if something I got wrong, let me know and comment, or so let me know. Thank you.